So Jaws is undoubtedly one of the most ripped off movies of all time. If I was to do a video on all of the Jaws rip-offs, it'd probably be 4.5 hours long and would just consist of mentioning them by title. But I'm here today to talk about Joe Dante's 1978 classic Piranha, which all too often gets lumped in with all of these other shallow, if you'll pardon the pun, Jaws rip-offs. We all know what they are. We've all got our favourites and our most loathed. But Joe Dante's Piranha, unfortunately, does get lumped in with all of these sometimes fun, sometimes excruciating Jaws rip-offs. And somehow it manages to be thoughtful and intelligent while still remaining just as fun as Shark Attack 3 Megalodon, for example, or any of your guilty pleasure Jaws rip-offs. So there's a bunch of cool things about this one. I rewatched it last night for the first time in some time, although it is a movie that I do tend to revisit every few years because it is a hell of a lot of fun. There's a lot of sentimentality about it. It is one of those relaxing monster movies that's simultaneously gut-wrenching and simultaneously kind of a relaxed, lazy river ride, much like the movie itself. So the first thing I don't want to forget, so the first thing I want to mention is the score by Pino Donaggio. So Pino Donaggio, not to be confused with Pinot Gris or Pinot Noir. He's the Italian composer, or at least the Italian heritage composer, I believe. He's responsible for some of the most memorable scores of all time, some of my favourite scores of all time. One of my favourite scores that Pino Donaggio did was Brian De Palma's Hitchcockian trash classic, the exploitation answer to Rear Window, that is Body Double, and Pino Donaggio did the score to that one. I even picked that up on vinyl, and very memorable score, very atmospheric score. The Body Double score has that cool 3 a.m. in the morning feel to it, so I'd encourage you to give that one a listen and give that movie a watch if you haven't already. But back to Piranha. Suffice to say, the score of this one is just one of many things that elevates this monster movie classic, which was basically inspired by a brief to come up with something similar to Jaws, to capitalise on the success of Jaws, but really does fortunately become its own lovable beast. So the Pino Donaggio score gives this movie an epic feel that belies the budget. Probably my favourite scene in the movie as far as the score is concerned. Purely, it's a textbook example of what a great score can achieve. There's a scene where a camp counsellor gets dragged off an inner tube. We see this awesome shot of her getting pulled backwards into the murky depths by Piranha, and we get this musical sting by Pino Donaggio, which is kind of epic and tragic and heart-wrenching and a bunch of other emotions all rolled into one. And what may have been, without such a great setup and great cinematography and especially great score, could have been a laughable scene or a failure of a scene. But that triple threat of score, setup and cinematography really makes it one of the most powerful scenes in all of cinema, in my opinion. And if you only have one reason to check out Joe Dante's Piranha, it is for that scene, purely for the budding filmmakers, or at least the film students or film scholars or those interested in film out there. It really does show how a simple scene can go from being simple to highly elevated and pull on all of the requisite heartstrings and nerves and the whole gamut of emotions for the audience member. And it gets a 10 out of 10, that particular scene, even if there are any weak scenes in the movie, of which there aren't too many that I can think of. So Piranha was a Roger Corman production, I believe. Stars Bradford Dillman, who I always got confused with, and the actor's kind of blanking, with James Brolin as a kid. While watching Piranha, I assumed that Bradford Dillman was James Brolin, but he wasn't. He was very much Bradford Dillman. Great star in his own right. And there's also, I believe it's Kevin McCarthy, who was, you'll probably best remember from Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the original, and also Weird Al Yankovic's UHF, aka Vidiot from UHF. So he stars as this scientist, and the more we see of scientists, especially with the whole fallout from the pandemic and the whole military-industrial complex and all the rest of it, Kevin McCarthy's role is right on point, right above the target, as this egghead that completely dismisses any negative consequences of his work, which sadly does seem to be the case with scientists and tech bros and so on and so forth nowadays. It's never their own fault. It's always they'll always squarely blame you, of course. And Kevin McCarthy's no different in this movie. Also, we see Joe Dante's regular cameo guy, I guess you'd say, the great Dick Miller, the late great Dick Miller's in this one, as the unscrupulous property developer or resort owner. And needless to say, instead of saying, "That's a damn gremlin," in this one he's saying, "That's a damn piranha." So he does channel parts of Mr. Futterman in this one. There's also 60s Italian horror icon Barbara Steele, and she's similarly playing an icy cold official. Icy cold officials and scientists are a bit of a running theme in this movie, and looking at it through older eyes, you see that Bradford Dillman is he's kind of a disconcerted, disillusioned alcoholic, and as a 50-year-old looking at 2026 with the scales washed away from my eyes, the piranha scales, if you'll pardon another pun, I kind of get where he's coming from in this movie and appreciate the character far more than I did as a 13-year-old, because he is that avatar for the audience member that's finding the world around him increasingly confusing and making no sense, and basically he spends the whole movie in disbelief that the authorities are so ineffectual, and worse than ineffectual, some of them are outright evil. And the movie's pretty cool in conveying those themes. These are Jaws ripoffs, of which Piranha is one. Despite being an elevated one, they're always at their best when they're covering those themes of failure of institutions, or corruption of institutions, or evil of institutions. And in a small sense, or maybe a large sense, Jaws and the ripoffs that followed really, I guess they forewarned and kind of conditioned Gen Xers like myself, and millennials and Zoomers and everything that comes after, in the highly useful art of being highly suspicious of all these institutions, whether they're political institutions or whatever they happen to be, military institutions, scientific institutions. And in my opinion, it's quite a healthy thing to be very suspicious of all institutions now, because let's be honest, they have a very low batting average and they've failed us considerably for quite some time, with no sign of it letting up. So, cool little movie. It goes for the less is more with the creature effects. I mean, if Bruce the shark was going to have mechanical problems, then suffice to say that working with hundreds of plastic and rubber piranha was never going to be easy. So Joe Dante is very sparing in this regard with the titular monsters, and we only really see them when we absolutely have to, and less is more. And as with Jaws, many of the most suspenseful scenes are when the critters aren't visible at all. Very well structured, well tight little movie, I guess you'd say. There's never a dull moment. There's not really a wasted scene or wasted sequence. Everyone seems to be gloriously delighting in chewing up the scenery and having a whale of a time or a piranha of a time playing their roles, especially Barbara Steele and Kevin McCarthy, I think his name is, the guy from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And Bradford Dillman is suitably stoic, and his love interest is suitably ditzy in a way, but also resourceful. And all in all, it's a great ensemble cast, including the late, great Dick Miller, who really is in fine form in this one. Plenty of quotable lines. The one that always gets dropped is, "The piranhas are eating the guests, sir." And this could be a good one for all of you in hospitality to remember when something's going wrong. Maybe if you just say, "The piranhas are eating the guests, sir," to convey the urgency and the situation. So there's a catchphrase that really should be more a part of the lexicon, I feel, especially for those of us in industries where chaos often ensues. So this one was followed up, of course, by Piranha 2, The Spawning, aka Piranha 2, Flying Piranhas. And it is as wacky as it sounds. You've basically got piranhas hybridized with flying fish, and this one was infamously directed by James Cameron, who I think was fired, but he did go on to I guess you'd say greener pastures in one sense, but probably became more insufferable down the track, and he probably would be more down to earth, I guess you'd say, if he'd stuck with Roger Corman movies. So I think that's about all I've got on Piranha. If you've seen it, you know. If you haven't seen it before, you're in for a treat. If you haven't seen it in a while, I'd strongly advise you to check it out again and revisit it, especially, as I said, for that cool Pinot Donaggio score and that awesome scene of the camp counselor being dragged backwards with the rousing Pinot Donaggio score that'll kind of leave you like this and make you wonder how you're feeling all of these emotions watching what is allegedly just another Jaws ripoff. But I guess that makes my point, that this one does elevate itself, despite all odds, into being more than just the average Jaws ripoff, and a cult classic in its own right, and definitely one to check out. So that's about all I've got on Piranha. I hope you're enjoying your week. I know I said I was going to cut back on reviews, but this one really spoke to me, so I'll be doing straight out reviews when I've got something interesting to say. If I can't find anything interesting or nice to say, I probably won't. So for the most part, this channel will be hopefully a mixed bag of goodness moving forward, and we'll see what happens and have a bit of fun with it. That's all I've got. If the need arises, if you feel the inspiration, by all means like, share and subscribe. If you have any thoughts on Piranha, any thoughts on Pinot Donaggio, or anything else to do with Joe Dante or Roger Corman, might be what your favourite Joe Dante movie is. This is probably my favourite Dante flick, and kind of just edges out Gremlins and Gremlins 2. But he made all kinds of great movies over the years. So, yeah, let us know in the comments below what your favourite Joe Dante movie is. And otherwise, I'm off to enjoy the rest of my evening. Hope you do as well. And hope you take care. And as always, take it easy.